Time now to bring in CBS Sports fantasy football expert Jamey Eisenberg for his Week 13 takeaways. And Jamey, sometimes players aren't ready when their number is called, but Nico Collins, not one of those guys. Tank Dell goes down for the season, unfortunately, in the win against the Broncos. But Nico, he went off.
He definitely did, and it's really been a good season for him overall. And we sort of gone back and forth on who's the number one receiver for Houston, whether it was Tank Dell or Nico Collins. Early in the season, it was mostly Collins when Tank Dell was dealing with a concussion situation. And now we know Dell's going to be out for the rest of the season, or at least the foreseeable future. So we're looking at Nico now as the go-to guy for CJ Stroud. And oh my God, what a performance he put on today. So you got to be thrilled if you have him on your fantasy team. Certainly thrilled if you started him today. I don't know why anybody wouldn't have been, even with the way that Dell was producing. But now you know he's locked and loaded as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver to close the season. We'll see Noah Brown step up. Dalton Schultz was out for this game. Robert Woods will have some moments as well. They're going to need somebody to fill the void of Tank Dell. But Nico Collins looks like he's going to be a league winner for a lot of fantasy managers over the next several weeks.
Yeah, his highest fantasy points total of the year. Second highest was 28. Now, Jamey, another player who shined big, DeVon Achane, who was doing it all against the Commanders in his first game back since not being able to play against the Jets. What did you like about what he did on the field?
Everything, and to be honest, I thought the Dolphins were crazy to play him in this game. This was a game that they could have won without him, at least in my opinion. To put him on that field, we know FedEx Field gets a lot of bad reports, understandably so. You see a lot of players get hurt on that field, dealing with a knee injury. But for him to get 20 total touches and to outperform Raheem Mostert like he did, you got lucky that Mostert scored the touchdown. But 3 catches, 17 carries, 2 touchdowns. It looks like DeVon Achane is going to be the lead running back for the Dolphins, and I don't understand why he wouldn't be. They get an extra day's rest going into Week 14 as they don't play until Monday night against the Titans. That should be a favorable matchup, as we saw Jeffrey Simmons, the star defensive tackle for the Titans, left the game against the Colts. We'll see what his status is, but DeVon Achane, we saw earlier in the season when he was healthy, was an absolute fantasy monster and looks like another player, again, similar to Nico Collins, that could be a league winner for fantasy managers down the stretch. So I was wrong about DeVon Achane, pleasantly so. I'm glad to see him back doing the things that he was doing earlier this season.
Yeah, and Dolphin fans are as well. They just have so many weapons, whether it's in the running game or in the passing game, and then, of course, Tua Tagovailoa. How about the 49ers, Jamey? Came back to the link for the NFC rematch game, title game, with the Eagles. Brock Purdy stayed in all game this time, and the offense unloaded, making Deebo Samuel look like a prophet because he said, look, if we got Brock Purdy in that game, it would be a lot different. And they whooped up on them. But Purdy especially, he was just so focused, bro.
He was amazing. 4 touchdowns, 2 to Deebo Samuel through the air. Deebo got another one on the ground. Brandon Ayuk scored. Juwan Jennings scored. McCaffrey still did McCaffrey things, even with the passing game clicking. And George Kittle, while a little bit disappointing, still, over 60 yards receiving and 4 catches. So this is just amazing to see what this 49ers offense looks like when they're healthy and when they are motivated, like you said. Clearly this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and I don't think anybody's going to stop them unless they stop themselves. And as we saw earlier this season with the 3-game losing streak, when they lost Trent Williams for a couple of games and they lost Deebo Samuel. So if guys get hurt, it'll be a problem. But the way Purdy is playing right now, he has top 5 upside in the majority of leagues. They have a little bit of a tough test going against Seattle in Week 14, but clearly they've handled Seattle already this season. So you just look at the way Purdy's playing right now. You look at the way Deebo's playing right now, Brandon Ayuk, all these guys are just absolute studs. And Philly's defense, while we know has been bad in the back end, they just did whatever they wanted to on the road against a tough opponent. So I don't think any fantasy manager is concerned about the 49ers right now. There will be, again, 1 or 2 players that potentially have a down game like we saw with Kittle, but you're just starting them the rest of the way. And, again, just fun to watch what they did against Philadelphia if you had them in your lineup in Week 13. Yeah,
arguably they have the top offense in the league by far. Now, what in the world got into James Conner for the Cardinals going up against his old team in the Steelers, and he just ran up on them wherever and whenever he wanted to?
Yeah, sometimes the revenge game narrative works and sometimes it doesn't, and it definitely worked for James Conner. Mike Tomlin was talking about we can't let James Conner get going, and he absolutely got going. Over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. It was a vintage James Conner performance. You still would like to see a little bit more work in the passing game, but nobody's complaining about the fantasy production if you started him. And it's been tough to trust him over the last several weeks. With Kyler Murray coming back, we just haven't seen him produce at a high level. Really, the majority of the season, he's been a little underwhelming and missed 4 games with a knee injury. But I guess just going back to his home state, remember, he played high school football, grew up in the state of Pennsylvania, went to the University of Pitt, obviously played for the Steelers. So this was certainly one of the biggest revenge game narratives that we can find ever. We talk about revenge game storylines. and he took advantage of it. So the Steelers' run defense fell apart, and James Conner was great. So they go into their bye week. We'll see what the Cardinals' offense looks like coming off their bye, but you got to feel good about James Conner for maybe the stretch run if this is the type of performance you're going to get. Maybe he just has to feel like he's playing the Steelers every week.
Right, yeah, it's all up here in the mental. Jamey Eisenberg, always love talking to you about fantasy football.
You as well.
Jamey, thanks so much. And if you want more from him, you're going to want to check out the Fantasy Football Today podcast. Jamey is joined by Heath Cummings, Dave Richard, and Adam Azer throughout the year, giving you all the advice you need to win your league. And it's available, baby, wherever you get your podcast.